new technologies are transforming the field of historic preservation of buildings and urban neighborhoods and the built environment generally, also of artifacts. Technology is advancing in realms like 3D scanning, photogrammetry, many different ways that digital tools can help us document, analyze, interpret, and even reconstruct buildings from the past, objects from the past. Building with Digital Fragments brings together technologists who are expert in these emerging methods with historians who are using expertise in digital preservation to ask new questions about history and about what we might do with monuments and other historic sites in the face of their destruction or threat of environmental degradation. And it puts them together with architects and artists who are using some of the tools, methods, and questions that come up from digital preservation to design in new ways, to make new kinds of artwork, to imagine new kinds of buildings, and to make new architectural practices out of these technologies.
When we think of the copying of buildings, we think of things like photography or maybe architects being influenced by other buildings. So those are ways of copying buildings, but in the history of architecture, there have also been many times when architects copied buildings directly. So for example, in the 19th century, architects would commission plaster casts of portions of buildings for the study of architecture and the study of architecture by architecture students. So they would literally commission the creation of large-scale objects that were direct copies of buildings from the historical past. Move forward 150 years, and today we have techniques such as photogrammetry, which enables you to create a three-dimensional model of a work of architecture just with photographs and computer software. And we also have processes such as laser scanning, which many people have probably seen people use, but you don't realize that it enables a very high fidelity copy of a piece of a building. And these things can be 3D printed, or we can use other kinds of fabrication processes to produce these things. And today, these kinds of three-dimensional studies of buildings are mostly used from a curatorial standpoint or an art historical standpoint. In other words, we use them just to examine artifacts or pieces of buildings very closely, pieces of historic monuments from all over the world very closely. But we also use them as forms of preservation, because now we have a very careful record and copy of a building that might be threatened with some form of damage, either through social violence, transformations in the environment and climate. So these are all kinds of serious ways that these tools are used today. And then in addition, what's also very interesting about some of these tools is that we can see in ways that we just cannot see with our own human senses of vision. So for example, the technique known as reflectance transformation imaging enables us to look at manuscripts or pieces of buildings with forms of light that just do not exist in nature. And using different kinds of light and different kinds of reflectivity in a software platform, we can bring out features of these artifacts that we would never even notice. And they've been fascinating to use, and they provide us with another dimension for looking at architectural artifacts very closely.